inside the Capitol, they were met by that lone Capitol police officer who tried to stop them. He was forced to retreat until some long seconds later, other officers appeared to assist him. In another part of the Capitol, protesters were in a hallway when a gunshot rang out. A woman was hit. Police officers drew their weapons to provide cover as people started CPR. Unfortunately, that woman later died. On the House floor, as rioters were storming the building and moving that way, members donned protective gear and were evacuated by police. We spoke with Representative David Trone.
There was a gas mask pre-placed under every other seat in the
C'est le président même qui encourage les gens même à aller faire ça. Et il va payer pour toutes ces bêtises-là. C'est pas forcé que les gens vont te voter. Tu ne peux pas commander les gens qui ne t'ont pas voté, qui n'ont pas élu. C'est pas possible. La ville est dedans parce que tout le monde a peur de sortir. Ils sont devenus agressifs.
The DC bomb squad was summoned there because what appeared to be two improvised explosive devices, they looked like pipe bombs, were found there. The bomb squad rendered them safe. A search throughout the day then turned up a vehicle nearby. Inside there were weapons and ammunition. That investigation is still going on. Unclear if the two are related, but that's happening outside the Republican National Committee headquarters, just a few blocks from the Capitol. And one of the big questions, Nora, and Jeff touched on it earlier, the police presence here. When we got on scene, before things got out of control, there were not a lot of police officers. The police presence was notably low, and this is not a town that is, this town is used to dealing with demonstrations, and normally there would be road closures and significant police presence. That didn't happen until after things were out of control. Nora?
Chris Van Cleve, thank you so much. And that concern about the lack of law enforcement was certainly noted by members of Congress who were seen scurrying through the Capitol, some of them on their hands and knees as armed guards fought back the mob who was trying to make their way onto the House and Senate floors. Joining us now is Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, a Democrat from Washington State. She was above the House chamber as the mob stormed the Capitol. And Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us. Would you first just describe the scene for us?
It was really like something from some other country, not the United States. We were in the gallery just above the chamber. There were about 12 of us members there. And suddenly we heard, probably before the people on the floor heard, the noise of people breaching the Capitol. We saw it on our Twitter feeds and social media and from alerts, but we could hear it. We could hear people screaming, shouting. We heard, what sounded like a big, angry, violent mob. And then we noticed that Speaker Pelosi was being taken off the floor. Steny Hoyer was being taken off the floor. There was a brief suspension. We thought maybe things would be okay. But pretty quickly, all of the members on the floor were ushered off through the side doors, as was described. But those of us that were in the gallery, just above the floor, were essentially couldn't get out. And so we put on our gas masks and we were told to immediately drop to the floor. The floor by then had been cleared, but we heard shots being fired, I guess, into the chamber. They sounded like they were right there. And we saw the Capitol Police now, the only ones on the House floor. We could see them. They had barricaded the doors with furniture, with other things, and they were standing about 6 to a door, around the door with guns drawn. To try to stop anybody who continued to fire through. So I think
we're seeing the pictures right now of you actually up in the gallery witnessing that, and we could hear, it almost seemed like you and your colleagues praying.
Yes, Lisa Blunt Rochester began praying, and she was right next to me, Sheila Jackson Lee, a few others, and she began praying for peace, for us to be protected, for everyone to be protected, for the violence to stop. It was a pretty terrifying moment, I have to say, and we didn't know when we were going to get out. We saw all of our colleagues going out off the floor, but we were stuck, and we could hear the banging outside the door as well. And so we were finally able to leave. We went down a series of very circuitous steps, and then finally were ushered to a safe location where we sat. But I just have to say that we are back in the chamber. I stepped off the floor to take this call. We will not allow these violent people who assaulted our Capitol, assaulted our Constitution, assaulted our democracy, have no regard whatsoever for the laws of this country, to stop us from doing our constitutional duty. So we are here, and by the end of this night, we will certify that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the President and the Vice President of the United States. And regardless of what Donald Trump has done to overturn this election, to incite violence, we refuse to allow that to destroy our democracy. So we will conduct the will of the people and the duty for which we were sworn and we took an oath to here in Congress. But the damage is extensive, and it isn't going to be over tonight. We will have to rebuild, and it is horrific to me, absolutely horrific, that the President of the United States is still condoning these protesters and still claiming that this election is stolen. So hopefully more Republican colleagues will come out. I think some of them are shaken, and some of them are finally speaking out. But this has gone on for too long. It is too dangerous. And I'm not just talking about danger to our lives. Somebody died here, somebody was shot, but also to our country, to our Constitution, to the very idea of America and what we stand for here and around the world.
Congresswoman, this is Ed O'Keefe alongside Nora and Major Garrett here. Thank you again for joining us tonight. One quick question about the House. You're someone who has a pretty good handle on the mood of your Democratic caucus. There has been talk today about impeaching the president in the next 2 weeks, and there's been talk of possibly even voting to remove the Republican members who object today. Do you support either of those actions? Do you think a large number of Democrats in your caucus would? Is that even worth doing at this point?
I think people are horrified by what has happened and horrified by the danger that President Trump presents to the country in this office, even for just another 2 weeks. And so I know that there are discussions, and I think, Ed, you might have even tweeted about this, about invoking the 25th Amendment. That is something that Vice President Pence could do, members of the cabinet could and should do. I am signing a letter with some of my colleagues, writing a letter with some of my colleagues to Vice President Pence about this. And I think that we have to hold Donald Trump accountable. He was absolutely responsible for inciting this violence, for fueling it, and he is a danger to our country. He is a danger to our Constitution. He is the only president who has refused to concede the election. And so these electoral college votes are not, it isn't just a protest. It's a protest to mollify a president who is refusing to accept the results of the people.
Congresswoman Jayapal, thank you so much for joining us as the work continues there on Capitol Hill. We're going to take a quick break. Our coverage of the assault on the Capitol continues in just a moment.